Here we will stay a while, and come to the city of the Galadrim at dusk." The others cast themselves down upon the fragrant grass, but Frodo stood a while, still lost in wonder. It seemed to him that he had stepped through a high window that looked on a vanished world. A light was upon it for which his language had no name. All that he saw was shapely, but the shapes seemed at once clear-cut, as if they had been first conceived and drawn at the uncovering of his eyes, and ancient as if they had endured forever. He saw no colour but those he knew, gold and white and blue and green, but they were fresh and poignant, as if he had at that moment first perceived them and made for them names new and wonderful. In winter here no heart could mourn for summer or for spring. No blemish or sickness or deformity could be seen in anything that grew upon the earth. On the land of Lórien there was no strain. He turned and saw that Sam was now standing beside him, looking round with a puzzled expression, and rubbing his eyes as if he was not sure that he was awake.
"It's sunlight and bright day, right enough,"
he said.
"I thought the elves were all for moon and stars, but this is more elvish than anything I've ever heard tell of. I feel as if I was inside a song, if you take my meaning."
Haldir looked at them, and he seemed indeed to take the meaning of both thought and word. He smiled.
"You feel the power of the Lady of the Galadrim,"
he said.
"Would it please you to climb with me up Cerin Amroth?"
They followed him as he stepped lightly up the grass-clad slopes. Though he walked and breathed, and about him living leaves and flowers were stirred by the same cool wind as fanned his face, Frodo felt that he was in a timeless land that did not fade, or change, or fall into forgetfulness. When he had gone and passed again into the outer world, still Frodo, the wanderer of the Shire, would walk there, upon the grass among Elanor and Nifredil and fair Lothlórien. They entered the circle of white trees. As they did so, the south wind blew upon Cerin Amroth and sighed among the branches. Frodo stood still, hearing far off great seas upon beaches that had long ago been washed away, and sea-birds crying whose race had perished from the earth. Haldir had gone on, and was now climbing to the high flat. As Frodo prepared to follow him, he laid his hand upon the tree beside the ladder. Never before had he been so suddenly and so keenly aware of the feel and texture of a tree's skin, and of the life within it. He felt a delight in wood, and the touch of it, neither as forester nor as a carpenter. It was the delight of the living tree itself. As he stepped out at last upon the lofty platform, Haldir took his hand and turned him towards the south.
"Look this way first,"
he said. Frodo looked and saw, still at some distance, a hill of many mighty trees, or a city of green towers. Which it was he could not tell. Out of it, it seemed to him that the power and light came that held all the land in sway. He longed suddenly to fly like a bird to rest in a green city. Then he looked eastward, and saw all the land of Lórien running down to the pale gleam of Anduin, the great river. He lifted his eyes across the river, and all the light went out, and he was back again in the world he knew. Beyond the river the land appeared flat and empty, formless and vague, until far away it rose again like a wall, dark and drear. The sun that lay on Lothlórien had no power to enlighten the shadow of that distant height.
"There lies the fastness of southern Mirkwood,"
said Haldir.
"It is clad in a forest of dark fir, where the trees strive one against another, and their branches rot and wither. In the midst upon the stony height stands Dol Guldur, where long the hidden enemy had his dwelling. We fear that now it is inhabited again, and with power sevenfold. A black cloud lies often over it of late. In this high place you may see the two powers that are opposed to one another, and ever they strive now in thought. But whereas the light perceives the very heart of the darkness, its own secret has not been discovered. Not yet." He turned and climbed swiftly down, and they followed him. At the hill's foot Frodo found Aragorn, standing still and silent as a tree, but in his hand was a golden bloom of Elanor, and a light was in his eyes.
He was wrapped in some fair memory, and as Frodo looked at him, he knew that he beheld things as they once had been in this same place. For the grim years were removed from the face of Aragorn, and he seemed clothed in white, a young lord tall and fair, and he spoke words in the Elvish tongue to one whom Frodo could not see.
Arwen Vanimelda, Namarie,
he said, and then he drew a breath, and returning out of his thought, he looked at Frodo and smiled.
Here is the heart of Elvendom on earth,
he said,
and here my heart dwells ever, unless there be a light beyond the dark roads that we still must tread, you and I. Come with me.
And taking Frodo's hand in his, he left the hill of Cerin Amroth, and came there never again as living man.